Yeah, very warm welcome. It's Andy. It's freedomtalkradioonline.com. We've got the king of information here, but we'll have to see who wins at the end of the day. We've got Alan Dransfield, Mr. Vexatious, and we've got Poison Pilot Len Lawrence trying to find out from the Sars request, what happened to him. Obviously, we're pretty cheesed off about getting information and blaming Alan, and then Len being asset stripped and so on. So tonight we're going to try and encourage you to put in them SARS requests, put in that FOI request, and if they blame Mr. Dransfield, then please, appeal of that, because it's not right. Right, welcome, gents.
Hi, Andy. Thank you very much. Hi, Len.
You're welcome.
Alan.
I'm looking forward to this three-way chat, because there's no doubt in my mind that we all three of us are walking parallel paths against scoundrels who are paid a king's ransom to assist us. And I refer to the Information Commissioner, which is John, what's his name now? John Edwards, and the subsequent tribunal systems and Majesty's Court. And it's just not working. It's not a question, it's just not working because of something. It's not working because it's not fit for purpose. And the people that are running it are basically bent. They're in a situation where Len and myself, we're just two of thousands of people that are not being allowed our civil, legal and human rights to gain SAR, Subject Access Request, and FOI, Freedom of Information Act 2000. Moreover, it goes on for the EIR, the Environmental Information Regulations 2004. And then, of course, you've got what's the one from Europe? I just forget. I haven't got notes here. It's all coming from my mind. But if I may, we did a show a couple of weeks ago with Andy, and since then I've been to the tribunal virtual upper tribunal. And after 20 minutes of the hearing, Judge Judith Butler, she adjourned the meeting because she said it was most unfair, a travesty of justice, to expect Dransfield to take part in that particular hearing because I didn't have the bundle.
Hold that thought. Did you actually get the bundle?
No.
You was right. You was right. You told me that 2 weeks ago.
Yes, absolutely. And I expected it within a week. It still hasn't come, and I asked it to come in to be sent to me in hard copy, but no, it's not here. So we'll wait. We're not rushed for time. So and also, I don't know why she didn't do it there on the day, is to send me an electric copy of a decision notice that day to adjourn, because I can see what's going to happen here 3 weeks down the line. What hearing? What adjournment? That's what we're up against.
It's also recorded, though, isn't it? It's recorded. But
well, absolutely.
You can get the tapes if needed.
But I've spoken with Dr. Reuben Kirkham, who I must say is an absolutely genius on this freedom of information, and he's a doctorate of law, and he's certainly a pain in the ass. He's a pain in the side of the Information Commissioner, and he really does hold them to task. So that we will talk about that, but just a couple of points today I've seen, and I would like to share them with you guys and other listeners and viewers. Today it's related. I have a legal argument with the National Farmers Union. I got knocked off my bike 6 years ago by a hit and run driver. He left me for dead, and I've had a hell of a time getting police involved, freedom of information, blah blah blah. But today, I'm pleased to say, I've been given a date, 2nd of June, 2005 at 12:15, to have a legal argument. My day in court with the NFU. So that's it is related, believe me, because all these people, they use the same universities, the same wine bars, etc., etc.
You forgot 2025. You said 2005.
Oh, beg your pardon. Sorry. Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Have you been to that wine bar?
No, this is water. This is water. Also today, I've learned, which again is interrelated. Our good friends at BlackRock. Now, I know Andy. I know Len's familiar with this because I spoke with him half an hour ago. But BlackRock were the chief instigators back in 2008 for the failure and the recession at that time. Now, it also transpires from last year that the Conservatives, when they were in power, they have agreed with BlackRock they're going to buy all the farms in England and the United Kingdom. Now, can you tell me the sense of that? So obviously now that's been transferred over to the new government, and that lying, cheating rascal, Starmer, he's absolutely said nothing. So this is deja vu, the American recession all those years ago, when they bought up the farms there and the houses, everything, and the cars for nothing, and then sold them when it lifted and relieved a bit. I mean, that is fraud of the highest order, surely to God.
That's why Americans don't eat very healthily, because there's no fresh crops, I suppose. Len, what's your thoughts on this?
I was talking to Alan when I first sort of met him. It was probably around about 2017. It was around that, before Maggie Tussle died. I'm certain it was via that I got to know Alan. And over the years, he's been extremely helpful. When I was very new to subject access requests and freedom of information requests, and on occasions you need help on how to deal with this. And I remember I was having problems with Devon and Cornwall police and with their data protection office, and Alan helped draft the letter. And it's a Scandinavian saying, isn't it, Alan? I can't remember it, but you know the one.
Yeah. Bizotsag, what the case, the European Court, Bizotsag, Magia Helsinki, Bizotsag.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. And Alan gave me that to quote, and they collapsed straight away, and I got a full disclosure. Hello, Andy.
Yeah, I'm here.
You're not.
Yeah, it's just a camera again.
Yeah, anyway, and that was an amazing precedent. And when I used that, it worked straight away. I got the disclosure, and that enabled me to start to build a framework of what had occurred to me. And it's very interesting to see those that won't give you a disclosure. The most prominent one in my case at the moment is Thames Valley Police under former Chief Constable John Campbell. He refused me a subject access request. And the present Chief Constable Jason Hogg, he's refused me a subject access request. Even in Somerset, who did the dirty deed to try and get me sectioned, they actually said their instructions came from Thames Valley Police. And many of the documents that Thames Valley Police won't allow me to see. I'm very fortunate because someone or some people within Thames Valley decided it would be in the public interest that they sent them to me. And they make for some interesting reading. And I'll disclose it shortly, but what's the word? All what we've been saying, how easy it is for people to get someone's section retained under the Mental Health Act, to silence them. On Thames Valley Police files, what the present Chief Constable Jason Hogg will not disclose to me is a report by Detective Inspector Nicholas Watts, CID at Reading. And he wrote this report and he said Mr. Lawrence was going through a divorce. His wife's lawyers had him sectioned without a medical under Part 7 of the Mental Health Act, under the call of protection, and all his rights were taken away from him. And that's exactly what did happen. But Thames Valley had already written to me in writing that they didn't find anything. That's absolute lies. I've got the piece of paper. Now, why would a chief constable like Jason Hogg not disclose that to me? There's no excuse. Why is even the chief constable now? And the more we dug into Thames Valley, and I can remember I was communicating with Sir Tom Windsor's staff officer, a superintendent at the time, and when Her Majesty's Inspector Constabulary went into Thames Valley to inspect it around about 2017, the then Chief Constable was Francis Habgood, and the Deputy Chief Constable was John Campbell. What they found that in a 1 year period, 35,000 crimes were not recorded. Those crimes were rape, sexual assaults, domestic violence, vulnerable adult and vulnerable children's cases, all not recorded, Andy. Habgood stood down, then he retired, then he was appointed the head of Buckinghamshire Safeguarding Board, unbelievable, and Campbell was appointed the Chief Constable, and still the non-recording of these crimes against vulnerable people, women, the elderly, are still not being recorded. But increasingly, more and more of these victims are coming together, and our cases are very, very similar. And that is what's going on now. We're learning how to gain these documents. And when you can't gain it from one party, quite often you can gain it from another. And in my case, I got quite a substantial disclosure from Avon and Somerset Police about what had occurred to me. But the disclosure I got from Somerset NHS Foundation Trust, after the assistance of the Information Commissioner's Office, was amazing. It shows that over 120 people employed by Somerset NHS Trust went into my medical records, and a lot of them left very unpleasant comments. But those comments could have only come from the police. Now, Andy, and Alan Dransfield knows probably better than I how to draft a subject access request and what to say, and also a freedom of information, what a freedom of information request is. So for your listeners who don't know what that is, perhaps Alan can explain it. If he can't, I will.
Yeah, the subject access request and the freedom of information, they were tools that were invented, for a better word, by, of all people, Tony Lyer Blair. The SAR came later on, but you got the freedom of information in 2000, and it wasn't used until 2005. And then you got the environmental information request, that was in 2004. And the subject requests, the SARs, I actually just forget the date on that, but they are all lovely tools which were designed for a purpose to allow Joe Public to hold people accountable. And when I say people, they could be their doctor, their policeman, the local council, public servants. And what a great idea. But then they realized that this wasn't such a good idea at all, because there was so much information that they wanted to withhold. And you go back to, I forget the date of it, the MP's fraud and theft of expenses, a good 10, 15 years ago. And so what they decided to do in around about 2012, they had this guy from Boston, Alan Dransfield, and we thought, well, what a good idea. He's a bit of a donkey. He's a country boy. We can get him. He always talks like that. Anyway, so I appeared to the Information Commissioner on a Freedom of Information request to Exeter Chiefs Rugby Club, because they'd built a stadium there and a bridge that I wasn't happy with, and I was convinced that it wasn't what it should be. And I was working for the company at that time that was subcontracting all the work out, which was Balfour Beatty. Biggest bunch of cowboys that's ever walked the planet, but that's another story. But unfortunately, I made a request, and no, you can't have that because it's vexatious. So I went to the first tier tribunal. Sorry, this is a bit long-winded, guys, but then I went to the first tier tribunal, and a very nice Indian lady said, no, Information Commissioner, Devon County Council, you are wrong. You are so wrong. Mr. Dransfield's request is politely written, it's benign, and you shall give him the information that he needs because it's health and safety. And then within probably 4 to 6 weeks, the Information Commissioner then appealed to the upper tribunal, not the Devon County Council. It was the Information Commissioner. And this is where Mr. Judge Nicholas Whiteley got involved, who I've affectionately nicknamed him Wanker Whiteley, because there's no doubt about it. So this now, then he turned that first year tribunal over and said Mr. Dransfield was vexatious. So then I went to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal upheld Judge Nicholas Whiteley, upper tribunal judge, and then I went to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court, they upheld it. But basically what this is all about, it is all about, as I was saying earlier, allowing Joe Public to hold people accountable. And what it must be seen to be do is transparency, accountability, and security. 3 lovely words, and I'm going to have those put on my headrest, my tombstone, and maybe they'll pay for it. Transparency, accountability, and security. But it must be seen to be working. And if it's not seen to be working, in all probability, it ain't seen to be working. And it surely is not seen to be working at the Information Commissioner, various politicians, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Defence, the Ministry of this, that, and the other, because they are all now using, and it's thousands of times being used, the Dransfield vexatious nonsense, which is now set in stone. It is a court precedent. And so where there is a situation where the information, if it was released, it would be sensitive, for want of a better word. And let's take our good friend, the filthy, vile Jimmy Savile. somebody put a Freedom of Information request in when just before he died, asking for copies of his interview with the Thames Valley Police.
Sorry,
And,
Pete, isn't it?
so, beg your pardon, yeah. There's nothing. I said to you earlier, you're so British sharp, you're supposed to be a numpty, according to the records. you anything but a numpty. But yeah, you're right. So Surrey Police said, no, you can't have this because of the Dransfield vexatious. And that is being used every day of the week. How many times, I don't know. But it is being used. And plus the fact, to make matters worse, the other legal basis that we all need is the Nolan Principles. The Nolan Principles is a wonderful tool, but again, it's being pushed aside. Nobody's bothered with it. And the Nolan Principles and the Dransfield vexatious is actually bringing this country to its knees. It is absolutely bringing this country to the knees.
Yeah, so what's the best way then, Alan? I think Len asked this question. What's the best way for the Joe public to do the Sars request and the FOI request? So obviously name and address, date of incident, why you disagree with what's happening, what information you need, that kind of thing. What's the easiest way for the public to put in these requests?
Yeah, with the Freedom of Information, it is absolutely straightforward. What you do is you put we'll say you want some medical records for yourself or your family from a local hospital. And you can say, I will start my Freedom of Information request under protection of the Freedom of Information Request 2000. Please provide me with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, whatever you need, so and so and so and so and so, and you sign it. There is no cost, and you can either do it by telephone, you can do it on Facebook, you can do it anywhere on the Freedom of Information. And what will happen invariably, if it's sensitive information, they will come back with a refusal on Dransfield vexatious. You can't have this because it's vexatious. You can then you start the appeal. You then go to the Information Commissioner saying, please look at the information received from my local doctor, my local hospital. I'm not happy with this, and I wish to elevate this to the ICO. The ICO will then come back to you and say, no, we've upheld the decision from the original decision. And that's how they're all working together, you see. Now, the subject access request is solely for you, for your person. You cannot get a subject access request for another person unless you've got power of attorney or you're a carer or something like that. But the subject access request, you're asking them for all information that you hold on my person, whether it be my car's registration plates or my name or wherever it's been used, etc., etc. And Len has been very fortunate. I cannot get, in actual fact, I was denied getting my subject access request 4 or 5 years ago because they used the vexatious from the Freedom of Information Act. And I wrote back to, no, you can't use that. That's a completely separate law. The Freedom of Information request does not apply to the SAR. And I want information that you've got on my person. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on that, Leonard?
I'll give you my experience with Somerset NHS Foundation Trust. When I was arrested by Avon and Somerset Police on false allegations of malicious communications, they all centre on His Honour Judge Simon Oliver once again and his family. When I was in that, it was never the intention of Avon and Somerset to take me down the criminal justice system. They couldn't take me down there because of all these caller protection certificates they and others have never disclosed. Anyway, I went to I was subject for about 2 hours of psychological assaults by mental health nurses from what is now Somerset NHS Foundation Trust. And they were not nice. They were trying to provoke me in this custody cell into a response, to shout or to attack them. That's what they wanted, so that they could detain me. But I used a technique called break off, which a man called Corporal Jimmy Johnson had just sent me details of his article about it. And effectively, I stood back, disengaged, didn't get involved in confrontation with these nurses. However long this provocation continued, it was about almost 2 hours. But I didn't know their names. They were two were dressed as sort of paramedics in green overalls. A woman, Carly Reynolds, was dressed all in black. And I did a subject access request to Somerset NHS Foundation Trust. They gave me a disclosure, but it was heavily redacted. Very, very little content. So the next process was to appeal for that redaction. So I appealed, and they gave me a little bit more of a disclosure, but still grossly incomplete. So I went to I was then told by the trust the only way I could progress this was to go to the Information Commissioner's office. And unlike Alan, I was very fortunate because I made contact with the director of the Information Commissioner's Office investigation. I'll just give his Christian name, Stephen, and he elevated it very quickly. I copied his response into Avon and Somerset, the Caldicot Guardian. Now, the Caldicot Guardian is a senior medical officer in the trust, and his task, along with his current medical duties, to protect your medical records, safeguard them. Anyway, the doctor was very good. He authorised a disclosure. Then I got a substantial disclosure from Somerset NHS Foundation Trust. And when I and one of the people who are tasked to look after me, we got the disclosure, we opened it, more than 120 individuals associated with Somerset NHS Foundation Trust had entered my medical records. The disclosure gave their full names, the dates and the times they went in to my medical records. But it's what a number of them are written. They wrote that I was delusional, I was seriously mentally ill, I'm delusional about having been poisoned with organophosphate as a commercial pilot. I'm delusional all about the cause of protection. Their whole, I falsified a headway brain injury card. They'd put this all on my medical records.
And you've got many books, Len.
Yeah, now what was interesting, as the police were unable to detain me under the mental health, they kept me under investigation for a year, knowing that I wasn't responsible for these emails. A consultant psychiatrist, looking at what these mental health nurses are written, he would have thought, we can't have this man out there. Oh, he's dangerous. I assaulted my wife and children. They put that on there. They put everything, Andy. But fortunately, the consultant psychiatrist and the chief medical officer, also a consultant psychiatrist, did not buy into what was being said. They did, but one of the consultant psychiatrist said, if Mr. Lawrence is so mentally ill, why hasn't he seen a doctor in the last year? So I was very fortunate that these two consultant psychiatrists didn't buy into it. And the chief medical officer has blocked access to all my medical records. That is how my subject access request unfolded and how I gained all the information. So I was very fortunate. Maybe others won't be so lucky. Then I did one with Avon and Somerset Police, and surprisingly, they were amazingly good. They gave me a very substantial disclosure. It named all the officers involved, all but one, and that was a Chief Superintendent Claire Arms. Nothing about Claire Arms. Anyway, the next one I went after was the not so independent Office of Police Conduct Southwest, headed by a guy called David Ford. And what had happened in my case and how this all came about, Detective Superintendent, Detective Inspector in Avon and Somerset Police were investigating the Worshipful Master, His Honour Judge Simon Oliver, myself, and the circumstances surrounding the Court of Protection, the Court of Appeal, and Simon Oliver conducting these cases when he weren't authorised. And they made a finding against Chief Superintendent Claire Arms, Head of Operational Support, Avon and Somerset Police, for the obstruction of justice in my case. And they sent it to the Independent Office of Police Conduct Southwest. And a man, a caseworker in the IOPC, Independent Office of Police Conduct, sent it back to Avon and Somerset Police for a local resolution. That local resolution ended up my house being raided and the attempt made to section me. Surprise, surprise, who was in charge of criminal investigations and who was in charge of police custody? Superintendent Claire Arms. So they got me in the cells where they were going to section me, and it didn't quite go to plan. Firstly, I had a brain injury identity card with me, which caused them problems. They'd run headway, the brain injury people, and they said I needed a specialist lawyer. Didn't get the specialist lawyer, Andy. What did I get? Didn't get the duty solicitor. What I got was a provincial grand officer of Somerset Freemasonry, who was a solicitor. And the officer had oversaw my arrest, the raid on my house, my questioning, the investigation, was also a Freemason. And surprise, surprise, someone's released me a picture of them both together in a Masonic lodge side by side. And who's at the centre of it? The Worshipful Brother, His Honour Judge Simon Oliver. And I've been a Freemason for 30 odd years. And when I saw what was done to me by Freemasonry, what chance do other people stand? Fortunately, Masons have come forward, a lot of them, some of whom with many years police experience. They've now resigned, they've left, and we've uncovered it. Now, it went through a succession of what happened then when I got released. Within 48 hours, Chief Superintendent Claire Arms departed her post. She was no longer the head of operational support, and she was later transferred to the Office of Police, to the College of Policing, where she's dealing with crowd control, teaching prospective senior officers. Then we went through the IOPC and passed to different people, and just ran into the long grass, Andy. Then I did a subject access request against the IOPC, and after 6 months, Andy, I've got nowhere. They normally have 1 month in which to respond to you. But after 6 months, I got nowhere. So I went to the Information Commissioner, and fortunately, they were very good. And the IOPC made a disclosure, and what it said, the findings against me, Chief Superintendent Claire Arms, obstruction of justice in Mr. Lawrence's case, and she's been caught, but the IOPC Southwest withheld that from him. So that's how the information officer had helped me. So I had the evidence then, so it all starts to unfold what was going on. I did a subject access request to the Bar Standards Board. I was told by the Bar Standards Board around about 2013 they destroyed all my court protection case files. Guess what, Andy? They lied. They made an error. I got 10 boxes of files sent to me in about 4 weeks, and I got them all sent electronically. What is interesting, not only did I get my own files sent to me, I got the files of a barrister who'd been in conflict with the Bar Standards Board. They sent me his files, and they sent me the case files of a man called Robert Pictor. Now, that is very interesting because Alan Dransfield knows Robert Pictor, and I'd heard of him remotely, and the man had committed suicide, but Alan will tell you more about that. So I got the Bar Standards Board files. Now, when I complained about these mental health nurses to the Nursing Midwifery Council, I mean, one of the ones which was really sickening that I assaulted my wife and children. I mean, they've put a medical alert that I'm dangerous on my medical records, just to cause me trauma. And I went to the dental place at the Royal Devon next to the hospital. There were 5 people in the room. Incredible. But anyway, the Nursing Midwifery Council conducted their investigation and they cleared all the mental health nurses. So I've done a subject access request. And the Nursing Midwifery Council have now written to me admitting they didn't investigate the mental health nurses, all of them, and they can't provide any evidence to show that they conducted an investigation. And that's how powerful these SARs are. But it was interesting, Thames Valley will not give me one. I don't need to ask them for one now because I've got the data they don't want me to see. Anyway, back to Alan. He'll tell you about Robert Pictor. That was quite an interesting...
Yeah, that really is amazing about a certain body giving you information on Robert. Robert Pictor was a fantastic guy. I met him only 4 or 5 times, a couple of times with your good self up in I think, but you'll remind me. He was a fantastic guy, and not for one moment do I believe he committed suicide as they claim. It's certainly a situation, did he fall or what he pushed? But that's long ago, nothing can be proved. But the fact that they gave you Robert Pictor's information, they could get themselves into a lot of trouble for that because that is unlawful. Subject access request, you are not Robert Pictor. The only person that could have got Robert Pictor's information is Robert Pictor or someone acting on his behalf. In actual fact, I was acting on Robert's behalf. He gave me a letter, I still have it, to say, Alan, to whom it concerns, I will give you full authority after my death for you to write to anyone that you see fit, asking for any information that you see fit. And, so these people that's released this information, it just goes to show the level of incompetence, corruption, and complicity amongst them all. And they're not fit for purpose. They're really not fit for purpose.
Kind of just a quick brief about Robert again, because I'm not familiar with the story, although I might be if you told me a bit more.
I can send you the case files.
just for the listeners, it's not, it's not that guy recently went went to jail over social media stuff, is it?
Absolutely, the same guy.
Oh, it is him. Yeah, I knew him well as well.
Yeah, a lovely guy. And walking the parallel path with us, he was a freedom of information campaigner and a social watchdog, and he paid with it with his life.
And the evidence that would have cleared him, the barrister from Five Rolls Buildings would disclose. Is that correct, Helen?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah. And Five Rolls Buildings is associated with the case of Javed Sheikh, the man who's accused of having the website Judges Behaving Badly, involving Judge Simon Oliver. The judges held me under the Mental Health Act since 2012.
Yeah, I mean the way that they've treated you, Len, is disgraceful. But one thing that doesn't hold any water at all is that they accused you of being a terrorist.
Yeah, yes, they have.
And they claim that you had sent what was the powder you sent?
The powder?
Yeah,
Anthrax.
anthrax.
Yeah.
Right. If in a situation that anthrax had even been mentioned that somebody had, Joe Public, your house would have been flattened.
Yeah, unfortunately for the police who have done this to me, we knew I was going to be attacked 9 months prior to it happened. I'll disclose that how you later. But I was in contact with the National Crime Agency. It was being monitored what was happening to me, where I was receiving emails. And when I became aware of the word anthrax, I made contact with MI5 and gave them all the references. And but they were very good, but others may not be so lucky. But some of those who were safeguarding me, one of them, quite a senior police officer, has served in counter-terrorism and royalty and diplomatic protection. He spent a lot of time at my house, day and night, waiting for the raid to take place. He said, "Right, Len, if you're guilty, so am I. Bring me to court with you."
Yeah, that is absolutely brilliant, but very fortunate as well. And did they find 1 gram of anthrax on your person or your property?
No, we'll get that.
Exactly.
Exactly. And who could handle it? Very few people would know how to handle that.
Len, I've never asked this question. You know, because you used to fly the Prime Minister and other people about, do you think you've been attacked more because of the kind of airline pilot you was, and then you decided, well, I shouldn't get poisoned, nor should anybody else?
No. Where my circumstances are slightly different, I was in the Royal Navy when we had a navy, not what we've got now. It's all gone. And we had proper airplanes, Phantoms, Buccaneers. Then I joined Freemasonry, and the Masonic Lodge I joined, Andy, was very strict. It was drawn from people from the Lord Chancellor's Department, the Judiciary, from the Detective Training School at Hendon, the Metropolitan Police Obscene Publication Squad, the paedophile unit. And these people were professionals, and I never saw any misconduct. Nothing like what I've seen with Judge Simon Oliver, what's gone on. And that was my background. And of course, when I was flying, I used to fly, Thatcher. I flew President King. I also flew the Irish Taoiseach, the Irish President, the Irish Foreign Minister, people like that, high-profile people, but people who were at risk of kidnap or assassination. And in that role, you had a lot of contact with special branch officers and diplomatic and royal protection officers. Again, quite a few were Freemasons. So I had this sort of little thing around me. That has certainly helped me. Other people wouldn't have had that benefit. It's like I had over 12 years of neuro rehabilitation when I suffered this brain injury. You're lucky if you get any neuro rehabilitation. If you do, you're lucky if you get 6 months. I've been very fortunate. But the organisation whose I was under, with 24-hour access to consultant psychologists, overnight it withdrew all services from the southwest of England. And that umbrella of safeguarding had gone, which left me very vulnerable to attack. And that is when Judge Simon Oliver and Thames Valley seized the opportunity to attack me.
Yeah, another question then, because it was a long time between incidents. I mean, the recent one was when you was attacked with Somerset. NHS was, 2022, I believe. Do you think in the future they're going to try and attack you again if you get close to the people you're like them?
The safest thing is to go public. We know who my attackers are, all their details, those who are involved in it. But what I'm seeing is these little kids who have suffered so much, the children who have been taken abroad by their mothers, again, all linked to Judge Simon Oliver. They've had to leave the country, they've lost their homes. Those that stayed, the children got taken. One of them served in child protection in a police force. But it's all covered up, all the time, covered up. And people have had enough now. And I think the turning point was COVID. And as we start to learn now what actually really did go on in COVID, and you see more and more, how can I say it, not mainstream journalists, but alternative media probing. But I think it's getting more difficult to cover these crimes up. Last night on Panorama, it was about the Lloyds banking fraud, and it was linked very closely to Avon and Somerset Police, the Independent Office of Police Conduct and Lloyds Bank. And I've met these victims, about 40 of them, in Bath about a year, 18 months ago. And the pattern's all the same, and they lose their assets, they lose their homes. And you go to the police and it's all covered up, Andy, covered up, and they don't do anything. And it's like I've been the detective superintendent, the detective inspector in professional standards, they were removed from their investigation. The only person who could have done that was the Deputy Chief Constable, Nicky Watson, or the Chief Constable, Sarah Crew. They're removed, they're replaced, and those who replace them tend to be a detective inspector, and they then hand the case to civilians within the professional standards, and you just get thrown into the long grass all the time. The most recent thing I got from Somerset, a civilian assessment officer, wrote to me denying access, denying that the police had the Call of Protection certificate, have ever had it. And I sent her back a picture from their CCTV showing me holding it in their police station. I haven't heard from her again, but the detective superintendent has now stepped in. But it's not the detective superintendent. These instructions are coming right from the very top at the rank of deputy and chief constable. The people below are just, they're there to take the flak. But like I say, with people like Alan and with many others, the whole picture's coming together.
Yes, it's like you said, both of you, just to go forward and make it public, that agent protection, A big shout out to Shazad, who's saying we don't need to talk about his story, but he's a fighter. He lost a lot, especially his family. And another guy that I can't work out why the guy's got 17 years in prison just for trying to protect people and trying to talk about SRA, satanic ritual abuse. William Wong, I met that guy, 17 years because he tried to protect somebody. You don't get that for murder.
No, you don't. I mean, there's been a look at again Peter Hofstra sent to Austria, incarcerated, and he will probably never get out.
He's forcibly injected with a drug that makes you hallucinate. Anyway, I don't know what it's called, Halopol or Halidol, something similar.
Excuse me, guys. You see, it's clear to me, and it's clear to most people with half a brain looking in on this situation. And the history is you clearly had the spine to stand up and tell the biggest airline in the world, Boeing, that they've got a problem.
They've known that since 1955.
Absolutely, but that is typical. But the demonstrable evidence is there because Boeing have admitted to this. Boeing have started to pay the compensation, but it doesn't finish there, Len, because that situation with the toxic waste, the name of the stuff again was what?
Well, it's an organophosphate.
That's it, organic phosphate.
Yeah.
But that is still there, and it's still happening, and it's still happening with our service people in the helicopters and military hardware.
Well, even more than that, it was used in the Gulf War, and it was used as a pesticide spray to kill all the flies and all the things. And organophosphate, they were invented by the Germans, and an example of organophosphates are sarin, Novichok, that type of chemical. They are lethal. They're used in fire retardants. Now, when you think a baby's cot is sprayed, the mattress with a fire retardant, they're spraying it with an organophosphate, which is a neurotoxin.
It is incredible. I've just got to move across to my charger because I didn't realise that I was getting so low. But I would imagine, and I'm sure our host is going to tell us in a minute that we're running out of time.
Yeah, organophosphates, you find them in all sorts of places on aircraft. If you read toxic cabin air, you'll find it all there. It's used in, like I say, fire retardants. It's used in agricultural pesticide spraying. There was an example in China where some children had been given some rice. It hadn't been washed, and so the spray was still on there, and a number of them died. There was a thing called Valpona. Remember that? It was like a fly killer that had organophosphates on. It's everywhere, but who wants to pay the compensation? And it's better to give someone a psychiatric diagnosis as they're mentally ill rather than address the issue. But I think we're all waking up now to psychiatrists. I mean, there's some incredibly good psychiatrists out there. But it's the mental health nurses. They've been weaponized. In my case, they were certainly weaponized by the police. And when you start to read, which I will publish what's been written about me, how I assaulted my wife and kids, how I falsified the headway brain injury card with the National Police Chief's logo. That's been dealt with by Headway and the National Police Chiefs Council. I'm delusional about the Court of Protection. Well, I've had a letter from the Court of Appeal to say the judges who dealt with my case, Master Bancroft Rimmer, does not and never has been a Court of Protection judge. So we don't know how many cases she's done. There's been sent to her from Simon Oliver. It's the mental health nurses who are predominantly the weaponized by the police to attack me. And they did.
There is no doubt about it that you could never be classed as a lack of capacity.
No, the brain injury I have, I mean, it's been evidence. I've been under the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery, Queen Spares, London, University College Hospital, London, and others. I was an inpatient at the Southwest Regional Neurological Institute in Derryford, and I was in a room, and my brain had electrodes on it, and they caught the damage to the central cortex. Yeah. It's all there. It's all recorded. It was been tested in America. Basically, what I get is neurological absences. They can last for a microsecond, or they can last maybe several minutes. And what it means, I lose my train of thought. That's where it causes problems. I have a problem with balance. I quite often fall because of the damage to the nerves. So I'm aware, but I've had, like I say, 12 years of neuro rehabilitation. So I've had access what other people will never ever have, and you just learn coping strategies. Like I have a whiteboard, I keep a diary, and it's all in front of me. And what I do, I use a lot of the skills I was taught as a pilot, and effectively I take a complex task and make it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just repeat something for the benefit of Andy, because he just popped out for a moment. What I was saying, Andy, that the evidence is well weighted in Len's favour, because Boeing are the people that he blew the whistle on. They now have admitted the problem. They have now paying compensation to various people. There's lots of people, but the problem is it doesn't end there, because the same organic phosphate is being used by our dear servicemen. My son is one of them. He's in the Royal Navy, and how many we need to know. But you couldn't put a freedom of information request into it, because what would happen?
Yeah, we'll get problems. I was saying to Len, and it was a Boeing aircraft. It was an old one, and I'm going on one again on Sunday. A Boeing 737-800. I've only experienced it once, and I think you agreed, Len. I smelled kind of a diesel smell.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go on the Dreamliners, you go on the 380 Airbuses, there's absolutely clear air, but some of these Boeings, you smell diesel. It's weird.
The Dreamliner, the Boeing 787, what they're not telling you, that is the first aircraft for about 40 years that no longer takes the air from the engine. It actually takes the air from electrical compressors on the wing, so you don't have that risk of contamination. What actually happens in the aircraft engine oils, they put in a organophosphate-based chemical called tricresyl phosphate as a wear additive, so the engine oils can work very high temperature. But when you have a fume event, so the oils can be up to about 800. So when you have a fume event, an oil seal fails, and those oils then get into the air conditioning system, because that's where the air is taken from the engines. There's no filters, and it goes into the cabin. Then you breathe these chemicals by inhalation. That is where the damage comes. But they're very good to say that, oh, you're delusional, it's a placebo effect. It's not, Andy. They know exactly what the problems are.
But then they are knowingly and willfully lying, and this is where we get back to our TAS, transparency, accountability, and those Boeing people and those managers knew. They must have known, because later on, I don't know how many years later, and I don't know how many people like yourself have been. They're paying out. They're admitting it. So hey, closed book.
Yeah, a man called Tristan Lorraine, a former British Airways pilot, and a lady called Susan Michaelis, ex-Qantas pilot. They've done an awful lot of work on this, and they've made a lot of DVDs, Contaminated Air. But the first attack is to attack you that you're mentally ill. And I've got a piece of paper issued by one of the world's leading consultants on PTSD, Professor Turnbull, who trained both in neurology and in psychiatry. And it says I'm sane. In fact, after all these mental health nurses said I was seriously mentally ill and I had all these diagnoses, about 5 days later, I was seen by an NHS doctor and I was sane. But they're so dangerous, Andy. They put you under the Mental Health Act, and you go in front of, say, Simon Oliver. No one can talk. It's a secret court, the Court of Protection, on a family court. You're detained under the Mental Health Act. You lose your home. They sell that. You lose everything, and people just can't speak out. And that's what but now there's more and more people are speaking out. They're saying, to hell with it. We can't go to the police. You can't go to Thames Valley. You can't go to Hampshire. You can't go to Somerset. You can't go to Devon and Cornwall. Where do these
You can't go to Police Scotland, Police Manchester, and so on, anywhere.
No. Yeah, I've had coppers come from Thames Valley come to see me off the record, all that way down to Dartmoor, to tell me where to look, what to do, and not to trust my solicitor. They were right. But why can't they do it on the record? Because it's the senior officers shutting it all down.
Very much like this reopening of Jean-Claude Charles Mezzadine, or whatever his name is, who claimed for the Met Police he was a terrorist, and they murdered him on the underground. Very similar situation.
Yeah. But that word anthrax, I mean, that was, well, I have to disclose the full extent what's been said. But it did require this, to notify the security services, and they've been very good. But other people, they may not be so lucky as I was.
But the hope we'll give people when we close now is never give up. If you've got truth to tell it. If you're a liar, don't bother.
No, I challenge Simon Oliver, worshipful brother Simon Oliver, to go to Great Queen Street in the Grand Hall, and we'll debate this with the public, what he's done to me.
And probably many others,
And many others.
I think this is a great conversation tonight, because we covered quite a large aspect of COVID, the poisoning of pilots, the Black Rock, but it's all connected. It is all connected.
Unless you can get that information, you go fishing. How I explained it, when I escaped from the government legal services, the official solicitor, I was there, lost my home, lost my assets, wondering what on earth had happened to me. And it's like, I got a fishing rod, I dangled it out, didn't get any bites, done a few more casts, then I got a nibble, then eventually I got a bite. I had a brilliant judge who gave an order that I could go to the official solicitor's office and inspect their files. And that's where I then got my first insight, what had occurred to me. But in hindsight now, I didn't need to go to that judge. I could have done a subject access request, first of all. So to anyone listening tonight, go for the subject access request, first of all. And Then if you get refused appeal, give a brief indication why you want it, and then go to the if you get a foul on the second time, you go to the information office. It's hit and miss who you get. I've been fortunate to have some really good people there, but you will get the occasional one who won't do anything and just fob you off. And Alan seems to get all of those.
Also, I would add, there's a very good organisation out there. It's all one word. What do they know?
Yeah.
And this organisation, I'm sure both you guys.
I've used it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just going to tell you there's a downside to this, and for the general public, if you do a Google search, what do they know? You would then go onto their site, and as we discussed before, you just put in who you want to speak to, what do you want, blah blah blah, blah. And then what do they know? They will monitor your request. When's it due for a response? Who's this, that, and the other. Now, incredibly, what do they know? Shortly after I was given a lifetime vexatious standing, the what do they know gave me a lifetime ban from using the what do they know.
Yeah, I tell you what we need in this country. When people do things themselves, you get emotional, you don't do it right, blah, blah, blah. What we should have is a free service where you tell an organisation, similar to What Do They Know, that's charity run, get them to put your information requests in for you, and then I don't think it would be that unfair.
No, I quite agree, Andy. But then you've got that other organisation, Freedom of Information, FOI. It's run by charity, and the guy who's in charge of it, Frankel, I think his name is. Does that name familiar with you, Len?
No.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're sleeping in the same bed as the ICO. We're fighting a terrible wall of corruption, complicity, blah blah blah, by all of those people that are paid to ensure and to police the FOI and all the rest of the Information Acts.
I mean, when I look at the money the barristers are able to generate in my case, the barrister Dominic Brazil, One King's Bench Rule, who's admitted that I was a Court of Protection patient when he had placed hundreds of thousands of pounds of costs and inferences on me without the Court of Protection knowing in 2005. He's still a barrister. He's been suspended for a year on another case. He's still out there doing it to other people, possibly.
Yeah.
So there's no penalty. And I can remember a hearing with a guy called Falk before Judge Falkgang. And it lasted about 7 minutes, no more than 10. And at the end of that 10 minutes, I had a £10,000 cost order on me, which went to Brazil. The hearing with Judge Oliver on, I think it was 4th of April, or 6th of April 2012. Brazil charged £10,000 for the 1 hour hearing with Oliver. Oliver wasn't even a Court of Protection judge. He shouldn't have been doing the hearing. He was told to send my case to the Court of Appeal. He still hasn't done it some 13 years later. I mean, he's been caught. But the question is, how many cases has he done it to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's going to be, or it could be 100. There could be more. And now we found out that Master Mary Bancroft Freeman in the Civil Court of Appeal, who Oliver sent my case to with instructions that it fails. I found out in 2023, I got a letter from the Court of Appeal. She does not, never has been a Court of Protection judge. So how many Court of Protection cases have gone to her and she's done them when she's not authorised, or she's returned them to Oliver?
So am I correct to understand that only a judge that has been certified as this particular type of judge can Take court.
Yeah, only a judge, only the Master of the Court of Protection or his nominated judges, there's about 100, or a judge of the High Court Family Division or High Court Chancery Division could have dealt with a patient under Part 7 of the Mental Health Act 1983. And that is what I was certified. I just needed to evidence that. I've now got that evidence. And would you believe it, Alan, when I did my subject access request to barristers, the naughty barristers deleted some of their emails. I mean, that's not very
Yeah, I would believe it.
Yeah, they did.
They shouldn't.
Yeah, but what they forget, when I did the subject access requests on other barristers, the emails they're sent to the other barristers, I then got. So you start to put it all together. But I found I had 3 Asian guys come and stay with me. One had done a degree in criminology, one in law, and the other in computer sciences. They're all sort of early mid-20s. And they stayed with me for about 4 days, helping me. And they said, you know, at the end of the day, barristers, solicitors, accountants send all their electronic data remotely to a cloud storage facility. So in the event there's a fire or a burglary, all of the data is stored. So I did a subject access request to solicitors asking for all data stored on their remote cloud computer, and everything they deleted disclosed to me. Got the whole lot. That's another thing which is worth knowing.
Interesting.
Very, very interesting.
I'll send you the letter I drafted to Simpson Miller. Yeah, they told me my Court of Appeal case failed. They hadn't. It hadn't. I'd won, but they'd lied to me. And what happened? I'm told that Oliver had rung my barrister, and he backed off. And he'd done that in another case with a woman where the barrister ended up under investigation by the Bar Standards Board. So it's a very nasty little game, but unfortunately there's too many of us and it's coming out. And because we're not going to the police now, and you're seeing a lot of these groups surfacing, then we're getting a much greater understanding of it. It's like you go into court now and you're on a mental health case, you want to know whether the judge is an authorised court of protection judge. Can he deal with that case?
Well, I mean, if those are the rules, it's simple, isn't it?
Yeah. It's that simple.
Andy asked a question earlier on. What can we do? And it's very simple. We need to ensure that these international standards organisations, which these companies and authorities they get paid for doing, is to ensure that they are done. We need to ensure that the Nolan principles are done. Not just a tick box. We need to be able to audit internally, externally, and we need to have the transparency, accountability, and security. Yes, I rest my case, Your Honour.
Another man who's ex-Royal Navy. He said to me, what was it? When the Somerset NHS Foundation Trust had done their investigation, he said, ask the trust for a copy of their emails and all their data to evidence that investigation into these mental health nurses. And the data protection manager came back and said, Mr. Lawrence, we can't find any record of any investigation that has taken place. So you get fobbed off.
Yeah, and lied to. I mean, look at this latest thing with the world situation as it is. I read in the paper today that we are going to scrap the red arrows. Not scrap the red arrows, period. We're going to scrap their planes, and they're going to be replaced with Russian jets. Has the world gone frigging crazy or what?
Mental.
Yeah.
Anyway, a super debate tonight, guys. Thank you very much, Andy, and thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah, right. Must speak to you again.
Yeah, thank you to everybody who's listening. And if you've got any questions for the guys, Freedom Talk Radio to 13@gmail.com.